Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of G63 Dad. G63 Dad is here to solve your problems. We're trying a different setup today. Normally I would park up at the school, but I don't have to go and get the kids today. So I've set up this overly elaborate rig in my car so that I can drive to where I'm going today and still chat to you. Because even though I don't have to pick them up, kids are going somewhere after school, going to a club today, a new thing that we're going to try out. And whilst that's happening, obviously, like I don't need to pick them up. So I'm going to get some stuff. And I thought I don't want to leave you guys, without a video for the day. So I'm going to film some, and I'm going to film some because I've got like a 30-minute drive ahead. So hopefully this rig holds up. The camera doesn't fall over or something. Absolute disaster. Hopefully I don't crash whilst I'm driving and trying to film. But hey ho, it should be good. We're going to talk about something, again, a little bit different today. We're going to talk about something because it's hot topic right now, and obviously we've got to have hot topics. We're going to talk about the situation in the UK because that's where I'm based. I'm obviously going to talk about my own experiences. We're going to talk about the situation in the UK in terms of the legalities of owning your own business, the differences between what it means to be a business owner, a company owner, and a PAYE or a pay-as-you-earn sort of employee person. And obviously, because it's tax season, we're going to have a little talk about that as well. So I'm just going to dive straight into it. Hopefully this is interesting for you. And if anything, if you're currently employed in that 9-9-5 life, if you're currently in that place, this should shed light for you on why it is important to strongly consider going into business for yourself rather than being an employee. So I'm going to do a bit of a breakdown on what it means from a sort of how money works basically in that sense, right? So first things first, a disclaimer: I am not an accountant, nor am I a tax advisor. So I'm not giving you advice. I'm just telling you the things that I see, the things that I recognise as being, that exist for me in my field of view today. This is definitely not advice. Full disclaimer on that one, and that disclaimer will be written down too. So let's first of all look at the differences, right? The differences between being a paid employee and being a company director or being a business owner, right? First and foremost, being a company employee, you exist in a realm for taxation purposes called PAYE in the UK. Again, right? PAYE, pay as you earn. So that means that your tax is calculated effectively before you do anything, right? You earn £25,000, say for example, you've got your tax-free allowance at 12,500 and whatever it is, and then everything above that is automatically taxed at the basic rate of tax. That's it. There are no questions. There's nothing in it. Effectively, they take the money from you by default. They just take it from you, whether you like it or not. And as you go up the tax brackets, and I was having an interesting conversation actually on Discord a couple of days ago about this, I learned that as I progressed to the top of the job market, so I started making progress towards the top end of the job market towards the end of my career. And I always thought in life, oh man, you want to make that 100k salary. That's how you know you've made it. You're breaded if you make a 100k salary. And actually that's not true at all, because in the UK you end up paying close to 50p on the pound in tax, or 50 cents on the dollar in tax, basically, if you're measuring stuff in dollars. That's what happens to you. You end up paying 50% in tax, right? 50 pence on the pound if you're making over 100k a year. 100k a year sounds attractive, it really does, and you get that prestige. You're like, oh yeah, I make 100 bags a year, I'm breaded. But you're not, because the tax office is basically taking more than half of it away before you even see anything. You're just losing money hand over fist towards taxation. And the question I got asked is like, before, I mentioned in one of my previous videos about like about money and stuff, like once you're earning like say 10,000 takeaway a month, right, you realistically don't look at the price of stuff anymore. When you go to the shop or whatever, you don't look at the price of stuff. It just isn't a factor for you. It frees your mind up, right, to think about other stuff. Whereas if you're making 100k a year, you would then think, oh well, 100k, well, divided that over 12 months, that's like 7.5k a month, 8k a month. But it's not. You're not actually earning any more than about 3.5k after tax, which isn't a lot of money in this economy. It's not enough for a family of four, basically, realistically. you're still very money conscious, money tight. Effectively, you're still sort of cash strapped. In a sense, you do have to think about stuff. So that's back on track. Sorry, PAYE effectively, right? They take any student loan from you, they take your national insurance, they take your tax, they take anything else from you, like your mandatory pensions, etc. All of that just comes out, right? By default, no questions asked. However, if you're a business owner, that doesn't happen. If you're a business owner, a company director, first of all, you set your own pay. You determine how much you're going to make. And you do it in a tax efficient manner. Now, I'm not going to give you the exact figures, right? I'm not going to give you the exact figures again, because I am not an accountant. But I can tell you that as a company director, you can pay yourself a basic rate of pay, you can pay yourself what's called dividends, and you can pay a fraction of the tax that you would normally pay in a PAYE position. Because as a company director, as a business owner, you can write your expenses off before tax. So let's say, for example, right? Let's say, for example, you buy a car because you need it to get to work. As a PAYE employee, you can't write that off. You can't. But if you own a business and you need a car for your business, let's say you're going to start a company, a removals company, right? If you start that company up, you need a car to get to that job, right? Or you need a van to do that work. Now, you get to write that off before tax. That's a tax deductible expense. Whereas if you buy a car just to travel to your office that you work in, you pay tax on it. You pay value added tax on it. You pay normal tax. You pay all sorts of taxes on that vehicle. You pay road tax on it. Everything. All of that is tax deductible to you after you've paid tax on the money you've earned in the first place. You're basically getting taxed twice, right? Whereas if you're a business owner and you buy a vehicle, for example, you only pay tax on it once. And even then, you don't actually pay tax on it because you write the tax off in your accounts. Now, obviously, it's expensive. You need to pay an accountant to do that. You need to file a tax return. There's a whole lot of stuff in there that you have to do to reap that benefit. But the point I'm making to you is that you don't play by the same rules if you're a company director, if you own a business. You're not playing by the same rules as everybody else anymore. You're not playing by the automated system rule that says you earn 50k a year, so we're taking 40% of some of it, we're taking 22% of the rest, and then you can keep the change. Like, by being a company director, you are effectively immediately better off financially. But only problem with that is that there are a variety of legalities involved, and you have to be set up for it properly, because if you're not set up for it properly, you don't have an accountant, you don't have all the right things in place, you're just committing tax fraud and you go to prison, and that's obviously bad, and I would not encourage that at any time. So that's one of the key differences. One of the key differences ultimately is as a company director, you pay your own tax. You determine how much you're going to be paid, which is always nice, because like if I want a pay rise, I just ask myself, and then I usually tell myself no, to be fair. But like if I want a pay rise, I just have to ask myself. I don't have to go through a whole process and be evaluated, or I ask myself how well is the business doing? Well, then I can give myself a little bit more. Well, the business isn't doing great this month, so I'm giving myself less because that's what the business needs. It's flexibility. What you need to you need to think about is you're giving up the security we'll call it, of having your 9-5 job, your security of that monthly pay every month, to take the risk of having a business and making your own money and being in control of the amount of money you make every month. Obviously though, in this market again, let's be honest, is it really security? Do you really have security? Because realistically, the company you're working for could go bust at any time. It could just be busted tomorrow, and you just don't get paid. You have to go through a whole insolvency process. It's a whole deal, right? It's absolutely nightmarish, to be honest. So, like, even then, like, that whole security piece, it's not really what you think it is. It's not, you know? So, like, this whole concern about, oh, you know, if I go self-employed and I start my own business, I don't have security. You've got the same security you have working for anybody else. You're just more accountable to yourself. Fairly, you know, straightforward. In that sense, you just have to change your mindset about it and think about it differently. But anyway, that's the main thrust basically of my sort of point today, is you know, PAYE and being like a director of a business or self-employed, totally different. And there are loads of different ways to be self-employed as well. Like you can actually be self-employed, like so formally self-employed, right? You've got that sort of setup where I am self-employed. Then you've got the other flavour, which is being a limited company director. You could start a partnership with somebody else and have a limited liability partnership. You could start a corporation if your company is big enough. There's loads of different things you can do and loads of different legal routes you can go down to make sure that you get paid and to make sure that, you know, that you're keeping as much of that money as possible in your own pocket, which you will never get that flexibility with PAYE. You are locked into a system that is designed to fit everyone, rather than the system for companies, which is much more flexible and you can tailor it to your own sort of requirements. There's other legalities as well, and I'm going to touch on these now because these are important, and actually more important now than ever. Especially if you're in a business where you're taking on clients or you're doing stuff, you know, where you have to actually get customers in the door and work with those customers, right? So, other legalities that you should be thinking about if you start your own business. Are you going to do business with someone? If yes, have a contract. What do we mean by that? A proper contract, not just a napkin with some information written on it. I'm talking about a proper contract document, which lays out all the terms and conditions of your business. It lays out the expectations, the stuff that you're going to do, the stuff that they're going to do. All of that has to be documented, because if it isn't, then they don't have to pay you, you don't have to deliver. It's messy, right? So no matter where you are in the world, I'm not just talking about the UK on this one, no matter where you are in the world, you need a contract in place if you're going to do business with someone. If you're going to build a website for them, get a contract in place. This is how much it's going to be, this is what I'm expected to deliver, this is the time frame by which we're going to deliver it. If you're going to deliver a service to someone over time, make sure that there are weekly KPIs involved. What are you going to measure? And make sure those are documented. For my type of business, I need to make sure that both parties deliver. I need to make sure my team are doing their part properly, but equally, I need to make sure the client does their part, because the client needs to obviously deliver a bunch of stuff for us to succeed for them. It's a two-sided relationship. So in that sort of relationship that we have with our clients, we give them KPIs as well. We have business KPIs that we basically stick to, but they also have KPIs. And we are in a contract for that. So if you're going to run a business and you're going to move into that being a company director or being a self-employed person, make sure you have a formal agreement or contract for every client you do business with. They sign that dotted line, and then they know what they're supposed to do, you know what you're supposed to do, everything's super clear. And you know what? If it goes wrong, the contract backs you up. The contract backs both parties up. If you're wrong, obviously it's going to be not in your favour, but like as long as you conduct your business properly in line with the agreement that you've set up and do everything in the way that you say you're going to do it, and just and conduct business in a transparent and honest fashion, then you've got nothing to worry about in terms of your contract position. So that would be my number one tip. If you're going to take on a client or whatever, please make sure that you have a contract in play to deal with that person, because that is critical. For me, I wouldn't do business without a contract. I wouldn't do business with anyone without a contract, basically. I refuse point blank to do it, because it's just not, it's not clean, it's not, you know, it's not proper, it's not professional, right? That's the word I'm looking for. It's just unprofessional to work out in an uncontracted way. Yeah, you can have conversations with people and network and stuff. You don't need a contract to talk to people. But if you're going to do actual business where money's changing hands, oh sorry, this bit of the road's a little bit bumpy. I'm just looking now, I need to maybe fix that rig for you guys. But yeah, if you're going to do a business where money's actually changing hands, contract is absolutely necessary for me. Now, legalities as well. Talking about contracts, I've actually, I suppose, missed a step here, because even if you've got a contract, what does that mean if you're not a proper business? So having a properly registered business is also critical. Now, the route I've gone down might not be the route for you personally, but I've gone down a fairly specific route, where I have a specific type of business set up, and it's obviously all registered properly, etc, etc. Everything's solid for me, no issues in terms of being a proper company, as it were. And there's loads of different ways you can do it, but having a properly registered business, you know, with the authority in your country or wherever you are, Like having a properly registered business that people can look up transparently on, in the UK it's Companies House. So having a properly registered business in the UK with Companies House, I won't do business with you if you're not a registered company, basically. I just won't do it. Unless you're a registered individual with a proper company in a business-to-business setting. Obviously, I deal with individual people as well. But like, if you're a proper company, I won't do business with you unless you've got an actual registered company. You're properly registered and set up to do business. And I would encourage anybody going into business to make sure that you are properly registered and set up, because it creates protections for you. Alongside your contract, that is going to create protections for you. If you're running a company, that company then is a legal entity of its own accord. You're not then going out on your own, putting your name on something, and then you personally are liable and accountable for that. What you're doing is you're putting a company name forward, and that company is its own legal entity, which can then obviously, it has its own rights, etc. So yeah, basically make sure you've got a registered company and that registered company has contracts. There are a bunch of other legalities at the minute, like obviously it's tax season in the UK, so I'll touch on that for a little bit. Like, with it being tax season, there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people are scrambling to get their documents together. And it's interesting, touching back on that initial subject, that like at this time of year everyone's struggling to get their tax documents together, and like, you know, the way that things are set up, like you obviously have to get all your paperwork in by a certain time, and then they tell you it's wrong anyway. Like, make sure you've got someone to do it for you, and you're not a professional. Like I always say, you should hire like the right expertise. So when I was a project manager before, I just hired the expertise to, you know, deliver stuff that I didn't know how to do. And very much in the case where tax is concerned and where, like, you know, business legalities are concerned, just get a lawyer or an accountant or both on side. Like, I have a lawyer, I have legal counsel, and I have an accountant, and they handle all of this for me. I do not think about this. And it's one of these things where people are like, oh no, I don't need a lawyer, I don't need an accountant. No, you do, because you're not one. There's a reason these professions exist. You aren't that profession. You just need to accept it and move on. They're not trying to scam you. They're not trying to just take money from you for a laugh. Like, these professions exist for a reason. It is the way it is. You just need to accept it and move on with your life, right? It just is the way it is, basically. So, yeah. Top advice, effectively, in summary, is if you're going to be a business and you're going to trade, you need to do... Well, there's an I-8. It's not down, though. Every time I see an I-8, I think it's the same guy. It's not him, but, like, I think it's him. It's the same colour as well. Sorry, distracted. Anyway, sorry. Top 3 tips for delivering as a business, or being, like, you know, legally compliant, I suppose, as a business. Tip number 1, have a registered company. Tip number 2, have contracts for every client that you deal with. Tip number 3, have accountants and legal counsel. End of story. Those 3 things are the things you need in order to basically make sure that, you know, everything's going to be correct. And then, after you've done all of that, you can start to reap the rewards and benefits of being a self-employed business person / director against being a PAYE employee. I genuinely believe that as we move forward, the amount of people that start businesses and raise themselves up to that self-employed, broken free, that I use the term broken free because I genuinely see being in a 9-to-5 job as a prison. Like, I see it as it's a highly restrictive environment, both from a legal perspective, a mental perspective. It stifles your development, it stifles your mindset. Like, if you're in a 9-to-5 place, you're going to be there forever unless you do something. You have to take action. You don't break free of it unless you take action. And, you know, you're always going to be stifled and in that sort of trapped way if you don't. So, yeah. Consider the very start of this video. Rewind and rewatch what I've said. Think genuinely about, you know, what it means to move out of that prison and into a place where, you know, you're free. You're truly free of that 9-to-5 monotony, you know, that exists. That's the same every day. You're not truly in control of your destiny, I suppose, if you work in that position. You're never truly in control, and you're never truly free. in my opinion anyway. So yeah, a little bit of a rant there, but those were my thoughts, I suppose, on the legalities of running a business and the tax system in the UK. I hope that was useful to you. If you've got any questions or like any thoughts on it, I'd super encourage you, get them in the comments. Let's get active and get a conversation going. Also, you can follow me on my Instagram. There's a link there. You can follow me on there if you want to have a discussion or look at my other content. I'm doing some short stuff as well, trying to get more info out there. As always, like and subscribe. Like, I truly appreciate it. I notice like I've got some subscribers staying now, and like you're watching all my videos and liking and stuff, and like I'm actually super thankful. Like I didn't think anyone was going to watch any of my content. I actually got a message today from someone that said they had subscribed and followed my content, and they were super hyped about it. Like, I was like, this is really cool. Like, an actual person has watched my stuff and messaged me to say that it was good, and I was like, oh, I was super excited about it. So yeah, like, I encourage more of that for my own dopamine, quite frankly. But yeah, like, all of that's welcome. Please do, like I say, comment, like, get into my DMs, let's start a conversation. If you want advice about how you can progress and start your own business, let's have a conversation about it. Let's see if I can help you take, your potential startup business and get it to where it wants to go. And yeah, like, appreciate every single one of you. Have a brilliant day. And yeah, I'll see you next time. G63 Dad out. Peace.